What do you really know about adult abuse, neglect, and exploitation? We get some helpful guidance on the steps you can take if you suspect a friend, neighbor, or loved one is a victim. Plus, dry, windy weather spells potential danger at home. Norfolk Fire Rescue shares its concerns and suggestions for keeping you safe. And if you are new to Medicare or need other services, Senior Services is here to help. Human Services Forum begins right now. Hello and welcome to the Forum. In fiscal year 2011, local social services departments in Virginia received nearly 18,000 reports of adult abuse, neglect, or exploitation. 50% of them were substantiated. So who makes these calls and when should you get involved? Monet Stevenson and Ben Waterton are both social workers with Adult Protective Services in Norfolk, and they share some important facts about this often underreported form of maltreatment for adults. And when we talk about adults, we're talking about people who are not necessarily elderly, but people who are of age. So that would be what, 21 and older?
Actually, it starts at 18 and older if they have a disability or things like that, or illness. And then we also, of course, assist people who are 60 and older.
Okay. So you've got groups of people that are more vulnerable than maybe our general population of adults would be. And those services are very, very important, but it's often, it takes the public sometimes to step in and get the word to the people that they need to get it to. That can be difficult. So what kind of situations are we talking about being reported to Adult Protective Services?
Basically, our reports that come in involve adults that have been exposed to abuse, neglect, or exploitation. It could be any number of circumstances.
So, and any kind of age, too.
Yes.
Depending on their situation. So abuse, let's talk a little bit about some of the common signs, and this would be certainly what you'd be listening for, but what someone who may suspect something might be able to use to help them move forward.
Some of the signs that we often see regarding abuse are more visual. Sometimes you may see bruises, scratches, scrapes. Some of them are not so visual, such as self-isolation, where a person used to come out a lot, but now they no longer attend those social gatherings that they used to. People no longer contact the family and friends that they used to communicate with weekly or daily. Those are some of the signs or things that we come across.
Would you say that that is more for people, older adults, that tend to be more isolated, or could it be for anyone?
It could be for anyone within the age groups that we mentioned. Another chief thing, I think perhaps the biggest thing that is called in is neglect. And that could be neglect from a caregiver, unfortunately, or a perpetrator, or a client who lives alone could be doing something that we call self-neglect. That is, they don't have the capability to adequately take care of themselves. And so if we are called, then we step in and offer whatever services might be appropriate to that individual.
Okay. So maybe in some of those cases, a sign might be they're not taking in the newspaper or the mail, and there might be other stuff that's associated with that, which would include that self-neglect that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Maybe they're not getting their medications, or maybe they don't realize that they've neglected something. Yes. What about our neighbors and our friends and our loved ones? What is it that, what can they do? I mean, if somebody is in a situation where they're, you know, maybe not taking care of themselves and you've got some concerned people, I mean, what is there any control you have?
Yes, we rely very heavily on the neighbors, friends, family members that may have not seen their loved ones in quite some time, but they have an idea that something has changed with that person. And so what we encourage them to do is just call our intake line, because from there we have an intake worker that will obtain the information from the caller and decide whether or not it's something that we need to be involved in. And if it's not, if it doesn't meet our criteria, what she would do is provide resources or a place for that person to go if it doesn't meet our criteria. If a social worker needs to be involved to assist that person, then she will obtain the necessary information such as their name, age, maybe some of the medical things that are going on with them, where they live, and some key points that the worker may need to know.
Okay, so if somebody may have in mind a person that they're thinking about right now, and that's good information to provide.
Yes.
If they don't have it, but or at least to write it down to know that, yes, we do have the correct address. Yes, we do have even the dates if something has occurred that might be helpful.
The intake worker will ask pretty detailed questions regarding the person on whose behalf the call is being made. If we are to provide services, the client would have to be obviously living but identifiable. We would need an address. We would be able to need to find that person. So, like I said, there would be other detailed questions, and any or all information that could be answered and provided would just be better assistance to us.
Okay. Some people might feel that they're being nosy, or they're getting their nose in somebody else's business and be hesitant to report something like that. However, by actually alerting someone, that might be the only way that you know. How do people get beyond that? I mean, they're fearing that maybe they'll be identified, that there'll be some confidentiality issues that...
Well, callers do have the opportunity to be anonymous. So if a person is hesitant and do not want to provide the reported information, they can still provide the report and know that a social worker will be able to go out and assess the situation and see exactly what that person may need. And they don't even have to be identified as the person that made the call. The actual worker does not communicate to the person who called anyway, because we want to make sure that the main focus is what the concern is, what the report is, and how we can better assist them. And so we always try to highlight that point, because that's a question that usually a client will ask as soon as we walk to the door. Who called? Who called? But we just assure them that, you know, it's really not important who called as much as it is whether or not these concerns are valid, and we really want to help them out.
Yeah, I would imagine too that that's also the one thing that keeps people from calling, because they just are afraid of their name getting out there. I'm sure that they ask.
They do.
Certainly, you know, that to me would be, you know, a real worry for some people.
The intake worker explains all of that before any questions on behalf of the client is asked. The reporter, as we call it, has certain rights and immunity, and if they, like Monet explained, if they wish to remain anonymous, then they certainly have that right.
Right. Although it's all nice to know that somebody's called if you have a further question, but
Yes.
that's still, I think, important for people to know, because if that keeps them from making that call, then that doesn't do much good. So how many reports do you receive in a month that are what they call founded reports in Norfolk?
In about a month, we receive about 50 to 60 reports. Most of them are founded. Self-neglect is the highest founded case that we identify. And again, that's what Ben was saying about a person that is not necessarily caring for themselves like they should. So we get about 50 to 60 calls a month.
Okay. So self-neglect being probably
The highest
most.
one.
How about that? Well, and the one that, of course, people wouldn't call about themselves about.
That's
so,
very true.
My goodness. Well, we had some numbers up on the board, and that was, you know, the number to call if people wanted to report or if they have questions. And certainly, you know, the whole incidence of abuse, neglect, and exploitation is a huge one. It covers a lot of territory. So maybe we can look at some of the other aspects, particularly in the exploitation area, financial exploitation, what have you. We hear about it a lot, but don't know, you know, is there a place people can go and call to find out what they
We're
can do?
here to help in that avenue as well. Sometimes it's just easy to give us a call. We can discuss exactly what's a valid case, what's not a valid case, and the resources to assist them, even through exploitation.
Okay. Well, you've got two willing and able people here, and we always have somebody who will answer the phone for you. And nights and weekends also, there is a number that we put up on the screen. So if you really feel that you need to call someone, please do, because there are people there waiting to help. And thank you for coming on and sharing what it is that you do and just your experience and expertise in this, because it's important that the public knows that there is a way to get the word to somebody that can help. All right. Well, if you're hoping for rain anytime soon, I think we just got some today, but we haven't had much. So our local fire inspectors, well, what can you do to minimize the potential for fire? So we're going to talk to one of those people when we come back. Don't go away.
Have you heard? The U.S. Treasury is phasing out paper checks for Social Security, VA, and other federal benefit payments and going electronic. If you currently receive federal benefits by paper check, you will need to switch to direct deposit or to the Treasury recommended Direct Express Debit MasterCard. If you plan to apply for federal benefits soon, you'll want to decide which electronic payment option is right for you. Visit godirect.org to learn more or to make the switch today.
A long spell of lovely but dry and windy weather has fire and rescue personnel on the alert. Norfolk Fire Inspector Wayne Wallace joins us with a look at just how quickly a house fire or any kind of fire can get out of hand under these types of conditions and what you need to look out for. So, Wayne, I appreciate you coming on board. And we have a couple of props, which we'll talk about later, but first we want to talk about the conditions. People might be enjoying the fact that it's been summer for so many months, but when you don't have a lot of rain, it gets dry, and that wind has been
very dry.
Yeah,
we had an example in Chesapeake just recently where the 5 houses burned down, very big fire, and the problem there was a lot of wind that pushed the fire from house to house. Right now, the state of Virginia has a ban on open burning. You cannot burn up until after 4 o'clock. You can burn, but not till after 4 o'clock. And the reason for that is the theory is there's less winds after 4 o'clock, and the humidity, you have higher humidity after 4 o'clock. So the chances of having a dry grass fire or something are less. So, but in the city of Norfolk, there is no open burning allowed, period. The city has an ordinance that you cannot burn trash, debris, other things like that.
And that's for this particular point in time because of the weather.
Well, that's all year long. There's no open burning in the city of Norfolk, period.
Oh, all right.
Now, you can buy the outdoor patio fireplaces like at Lowe's or Home Depot. Yeah. Those are legal. But you only want to burn dry season wood and those things. You don't want to burn trash and debris and things like that. That you cannot do.
Oh, that would pop and stuff would be
and cause a strong odor and cause other problems.
Oh, so, yes, there's that.
But they are legal, but you want to make sure they're at least 15 feet away from combustibles, your house or a fence or anything like that. So that's the only type of open burning is allowed in the city. And actually the code doesn't consider that open burning because it's in a container.
So if you're grilling out on your charcoal grill and you have it fairly close to the house and the wind's blowing toward the house, that's not a good thing.
Not a good idea. With a grill, you want to have a grill at least 10 feet away from your house or a fence or something like that. And just make sure you maintain the grill. Don't, keep it clean. Don't let grease build up. Don't leave it unattended. And just be safe with it. And the big thing is read the manufacturer's instructions. Make sure you know how to use the grill. And if you do have a fire, you know what to do with the grill.
Okay, so is there anything that people in general could do in case something did kind of flare
if something goes wrong, if you can shut the lid on the grill, which helps smother the fire, and if you can reach under without hurting yourself, shut off the gas, propane gas to the grill. If the fire does not go out, continues, then you need to call 911 for help.
How quickly I know it can be fast. I know that even a discarded cigarette or
very quickly. Somebody can discard a cigarette and you can have a fire within 30 minutes. There's a local restaurant here that no longer puts mulch around their restaurant because they had an experience a few years ago where they think somebody threw a cigarette into the mulch and the mulch caught the side of the building on fire. So this particular restaurant no longer uses mulch. They use the lava rocks.
Oh my gosh.
So that they don't have to worry about that anymore.
So you don't think about that because mulch you think of as something kind of moist or put around to protect the plants or what have you.
But it caught the side of their building on fire. So, and if you do have smokers in your home or if you know people that smoke, first of all, try and get them to quit, but that's a hard thing. We all have bad habits. Go outside and smoke, and when you put your cigarette out, either have an ashtray out there or an ashtray full of sand you can put the cigarette out with, or wet it somehow before you put it in the trash. Very, very important to do things like that.
Yeah, the wind could pick it right up and
Oh, yes.
blow it into a bush,
Oh, yes.
and there's...
Unfortunately, just a few weeks ago, 2 people died in a fire in Virginia Beach, and they believe the fire started from outside. And they don't know yet, it's still on an investigation, but it could have been a cigarette. Somebody could have discarded a cigarette and start the side of the house on fire.
Somebody who didn't even realize what they had
Didn't realize
done.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
So very dangerous.
Well, I guess that gets into, why toss them out the window if you can,
Right.
put them out somewhere too. So we could
Right.
get into a whole different area with that.
Now, we do have, occasionally we have problems with charcoal grills, people disposing of their charcoal.
Okay.
Okay. When you get done with your charcoal grill, you want to let it sit for 48 hours for the coals to cool off. If you have to take them out before then, you want to put them in a metal trash can, wet them down real good, and put a lid on it and leave it for a couple of days before you put it in regular trash. If you think about it, a lot of our trash cans today are made out of plastic. If you put hot coals in that trash can is going to catch on fire. And where do most people put their trash cans?
Right
Against
by the house. Oh my gosh.
Okay? So
Yeah.
those are the things you want to think of. We're going to be, this, like you said, summer's coming up.
Yeah.
We're going to do a lot more cooking outside, more activities outside. Fires do decrease in the summertime, but we still have fires. So you still need to be aware.
Right.
And with the dry conditions, very important.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and even a little bit of rain isn't going to change
No, a little
that.
bit of rain won't change it very quickly. If you think about the fires they had in the Dismal Swamp,
Yes.
it took several months for it to go out because it was so thick
Yes.
and it wasn't really wet. It just kept burning.
All right. Mulch, charcoal, briquettes, cigarettes, all those things that we see and people use all the time
Right.
can really be dangerous.
Yes. Yeah. Be careful.
Well, you mentioned the couple that had died in the fire. It's such a tragedy too, because you really are not sure what happened, but they
Right.
think it was outside the house. But
Right.
even if it were outside or if it's inside, there may be some precautions. And you have a couple of devices here
Right.
that.
What we like to remind people is that smoke detector right there is from actual fire where a person died.
Oh.
And what cost that person their life is the $2 battery that's in the smoke detector. It was missing.
Wow.
So, and this one here is a smoke detector for hearing impaired.
Okay.
It is very loud, but also has a bright flashing light here.
Mm-hmm.
It helps to wake a person up during a sleep. And this one's very simple. You just attach it to the wall, up high on the wall, and you just run the plug to an outlet, and that's all you have to do. This does not have to be hardwired.
Okay.
Okay, and you can actually buy extra brackets if you want to move it room to room in your house.
Okay.
So, very, very convenient for somebody that's hearing impaired.
Okay.
This one here is a smoke detector that we all have the nuisance alarms when we're cooking,
Yes.
and people tend to take the battery out of the smoke detector. Now you've lost your protection. Well, this one here is, if you have a nuisance alarms with this, you can silence it with the remote from your TV instead of taking the battery out, and it'll reset itself. So you still have the protection, and you've silenced it because whatever nuisance was causing it to go off. So it's very convenient. You don't have to take the battery out.
Now, do these cost something?
Well, unfortunately, the one for hearing impaired is very expensive. This one can run about anywhere from $100 to $150.
Wow.
Okay, hopefully they'll go down in price in a few years. This particular model runs about $29, $30, so
Okay.
it's not too bad.
All right.
But that's relatively cheap when it compares to your life.
All right. Now, are there smoke detectors that people can get that aren't costing them anything?
Well, we do.
Fire department?
That's a very good question. We do have a free smoke detector program with the city of Norfolk. If you call the fire marshal's office at 664-6604 and you tell them that you would like to get a smoke detector installed, we'll get your information and we'll send out a fire truck and install it for free for you.
All right. I have 6616 up there, so I apologize for that error.
That's
but
okay.
My 6604, we'll still get to somebody.
Yep, we'll still get
Great.
somebody.
So certainly it's a great option. Well, hopefully we'll get some rain and we won't have to worry too much, but it's good things to point out.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
Wayne. Well, if you're new to Medicare, find out where you can learn more and when about some of the options and about other services for seniors when we come back. So go away.
Any questions?
What kind of service plan does this come with?
Unlimited.
Can I keep my same phone number?
Absolutely.
How do I change the ringtone?
Just hook it up to your computer.
Does it have a camera? What's the warranty? Does it come in silver? Can I put my party shuffle on this? Does it have a 3.5 millimeter headset jack? You sell a lot of these?
It's the one I carry.
You ever get those phantom vibrations in your pocket?
Any questions?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Ask questions. For the 10 questions everyone should know, go to ahrq.gov.
If you're about to qualify for Medicare, you probably have a lot of questions. Well, the folks at Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia have a lot of answers. Please welcome to the set. We have Iris James, who is a volunteer benefits counselor with Senior Services. We have Susan Roberts, who's Director of Volunteer Services, and and Julia Melvin, who is the Senior Companion Program Coordinator. Lots of services all under one roof and all under one name, but each of these individuals has an area that they can talk about. And so let's start with our Medicare, because we understand there are some information sessions that are available for people who may be new to it, but people who are new to Medicare aren't necessarily people who are a certain age.
This is true. This is true. We usually think of people who are new to Medicare being 65 years and older, but of course there are some people who may be new to Medicare who may be disabled who are receiving Medicare services. So the informational sessions would be good for any of them, or even people who are caretakers of individuals who are new to Medicare or who are disabled. So the information sessions are available by calling the office to schedule an appointment, to let them know that you need the information services.
Okay, it's up on the screen right now, 461-9481, and you can also check on the website for some information.
Yes.
They have a couple of people's names up there. They'll connect you with them because they do have the information on Medicare. We certainly, as Iris has been telling you, that the information sessions are helpful. What kind of stuff can you find out during that? I mean, if you don't really know a whole lot about it, it's like you're not really sure what to ask sometimes. So,
well, you can get information on how to sign up for the Medicare if you haven't done so already. A lot of times people want to jump on the wagon early so that their paperwork and everything is available to them when they turn 65, you know, the day of their birthday. And you can also find out information about the drug plans, get information about assistance with your drug plans, long-term care programs. All of that information would be available to someone. And in addition to that, you'd get some briefing on Medicare fraud and things to avoid and to look out for when you're a Medicare recipient.
okay, yeah, there's a lot of good information and
a lot
things
of
that probably never
information.
occurred to you before
That's
then.
right.
Huh? Well, they also offer the counseling sessions, as you are a counselor.
Right. I'm a counselor. I can help individuals who are new to Medicare or who are receiving Medicare to get their benefits set up, get their drug plans set up. In addition to that, any other questions that they may have regarding preventative services that are available once they are receiving Medicare.
Okay, terrific. As she is a volunteer, Susan, what are the costs of things like this?
Oh, there is absolutely no cost to receive the counseling or to become a volunteer.
Okay.
And it's great to have volunteers like Iris to do this job because she's also available to her parishioners at her church. She's available in her civic league. So if seniors or people with disabilities need that information and they cannot come into Senior Services or call, they have Iris available to them. And I can say for Iris, she's very active in the community when it comes to that. But if people are interested in becoming a volunteer benefits counselor, all they have to do is call Senior Services, and we can put them through their training, make sure that they're qualified to do the job. And qualified means just you can read, you can write, and you're not a current insurance agent. So
there you go. You're not selling anything.
Exactly.
Some information that's good for you.
But the volunteer services program at Senior Services, we have a wealth of different programs that we offer through volunteer services to help the community. Julia Melvin here, she is the coordinator for the Senior Companion Program. And that's another program that will be talked about at these sessions. And you can either become a senior companion or you can receive the services. And so,
all right. So Julia, the Senior Companion Program, popular program?
Very popular. Yes, ma'am. We never have enough volunteers, which is one reason we're here today.
Okay. Well,
get that word out there. We always need new senior companions. So
and what does a senior companion do?
They do the kinds of things a friend would do for a friend, for other seniors that live independently in their neighborhood, who just need a helping hand to stay independent and healthy. So it's pretty simple. It's as simple as that, and it's also a free service.
So yes, for the person receiving the services, that's a real bonus.
Exactly. The Senior Companion Program also gives an awful lot of benefits to the volunteer. They receive a tax-free stipend and paid holidays, vacation and sick leave, lots and lots of ongoing training, and the camaraderie that comes with being in a corps. With all the other volunteers, and what they get back from the relationship is important too.
Well, I'm sure, just certainly the people that they help, there must be some wonderful friendships that blossom through that.
They do. A real purpose in their retirement.
Yes.
So to be a volunteer in this program, you just have to be a senior and you have to be retired, and give that phone number a call, 461-9481.
I feel like I'm on a telephone.
Yeah. And my extension's 124, and I'll be happy to walk them through that process.
Okay. And that's Julia Melvin, extension 124, 124.
Yes, please.
But the main number being 461-9481 for any of this information. So Medicare and those information sessions will include information about Senior Companion Program, whether you want to be a volunteer or you want to know somebody that needs the services, which is a great service to the community, as we have more and more people that are needing that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Also, Jan, you know, Older Americans Month is coming up in May, and we have a series of events going on that seniors can attend. But at these events, they will learn about the different services and options that we offer at Senior Services.
Okay, great. And remember that website too, because they'll have things posted on there. So Older Americans Month, also they consider it Elder Abuse Prevention Month. There are a lot of things that'll be targeting older Americans, which I suppose is a better, it's a frame of mind, but sometimes it's just your physical, you know. It's like sometimes that, you know, the life reminds you that you're not 22 anymore. So thank you for coming on. I know this was quick, but good information. And you're clearly very much supportive and engaged in it, so I know that they're very lucky to have you.
Thanks, Jan.
All right, thanks for being here. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you again next time. Bye.